So the other end of the offense that hasn't been great has been the running game recently. They trade for James Robinson, and he had one good game against the Bills, but really hasn't done much. Zonovan Knight had a couple flashes, which was good, but still, again, not consistent enough. So are you surprised this Jets run game has not been the same way, especially with the scheme? And what do you think are the best ways to attack both the Seahawks and the Dolphins with that running game to take some pressure off?
Yeah, they completely imploded. I mean, you nailed it there, Speedy Petey, is that it's been horrible. And it's weird because, again, you've had these morsels of games, like the Minnesota game jumps out where the Zonovan had the massive run down the left hash that got him in scoring range there. And he's had a few nice games. The Bears game was the coming out party when he got his first crack at the bat. So, I am surprised, but maybe it's just that this Jets offensive line has been battered. They've put 6 different starting offensive linemen on IR at different portions of this season, and maybe just eventually the horses just run out. It's been impressive, quite frankly, that Joe Douglas and give credit to the Jets offensive line coach John Benton, that the combination of them have figured it out despite any injuries, and they've been more than competent in both protection and in the run game, but now it's just kind of slogging a bit. The thing I really don't understand, though, and it's kind of weird, and I don't know what speaks to this, is that the analytics of how the offensive line performs with Mike White compared to Zach Wilson are stark. Now, is it the offensive linemen like Mike White more so they're blocking better? Is it Mike White throwing the ball a little bit faster so the analytics lean a little bit more favorably because there's less time to sack him because he's not holding the ball as long? Again, that's up to each and every one individually to try to interpret. But the fact of the matter is what they will be able to do is get the ball out. That's what Mike White does best. He gets the ball out of his hands very quickly, and that should do 2 things. First off, that should horizontally spread the defenses that they're playing, so it should kind of thin them out like butter on a piece of toast, and thus the north and south running game of Zonovan Knight should be able to kind of break through a little bit, because basically what these defenses have done when they've played against Zach Wilson, they're like, screw you, pal. We're going to load up the box and blitz on every third down and see what you can do, and he's folded like a used lawn chair. So now to have to respect the passing game a little bit more with Mike White's ability, both in the short and intermediate passing game, that's going to both spread him out horizontally, like I just said, and also back him up a little bit, and I think that should naturally help the run game from that perspective. Again, the Seattle Seahawks defense, as an example to your question, they are 31st in rush defense. It's almost like what we saw with Detroit, like where the Jets sucked against Detroit running the ball, and then all of a sudden Carolina Panthers ran for like 350 yards. Yeah. Like, the Jets have no excuse. They need to establish a ground game, and perhaps who does that first in this Jets-Seattle game may end up winning the contest. But again, both defenses are poor. The Jets should be able to get theirs in the running game, which maybe leads into some of that run, set up the pass action, specifically this weekend, despite Tariq Woolen out there and Quandre Diggs in the back end of that defense. I think that's something that they're going to lean on.
As everybody knows, we are talking to Heavy Sports Jets digital reporter Paul Esden Jr. We look at the offensive line. George Font, it took him a while to get healthy. He has been horrible. Dwayne Brown, I give him a lot of credit. He's playing with one arm. Laken Tomlinson has been absolutely horrible this year. McGovern, thank God, is on his final year, so maybe the Jets look for a center in the draft. He's been really, ever since Elijah Vera Tucker's injury, this offensive line has been an absolute debacle. It's not been good. And I don't care what anybody says. The Jets had one of the top 3 linemen in all of football. The guy played four positions this year and was pretty dominant on every single one of them. And it's just a shame that losing a player of that magnitude, everybody was speaking about Breece Hall, but the biggest loss from those 2 injuries was Elijah Vera Tucker. What are your thoughts to what the Jets need to do this week against not a very good pass rush in Seattle, and then the week after against Miami, which is a little bit better?
100%. And by the way, I hate that we're having like debates. That's because there's been too many injuries where it's a conversation. Like, do you think Breece Hall was a bigger loss, or was it AVT, or was it this guy, or was it this guy? Again, the Jets have been just destroyed with injuries all year long. But I do agree it was the AVT one that really set it back. But both were lost in the same game, I guess. So they won the battle winning that Denver Broncos game, but perhaps lose the war of changing the ceiling of their season by losing both of those players. Yeah, I mean, it is up to the offensive line to step up to the plate. I mean, you did a really good job there of kind of setting up the issues. Again, I give all the credit in the world to Dwayne Brown. He could have, after having a torn rotator cuff, which is the injury Dwayne Brown suffered right before the season opener, he had one of 2 choices. Either again, get placed on IR, which is what happened, miss 4 games, and not have surgery and hope you can heal it in that way and just kind of play through it, or have the surgery and you're immediately out for the year. And if he would have been at 37 years of age, he would have simply just retired. So he would have just taken the bag of money he got from the Jets and walked off into the sunset. So credit to him to say, screw that. And the direct quote that he gave to the team is, I'm not going out that way. So he has been, all things considered, comparable from that standpoint at left tackle, which has been really cool to see. Unfortunately, I can't say the same for the rest of the line. Laken Tomlinson, who it's so hard to believe how bad he's been because it's the same system. It's the same scheme. He's playing the same position. The Jets made Elijah Vera-Tucker switch because they wanted to make things as smooth as possible for Laken. And for whatever reason, he has just struggled mightily. So hopefully it's just a weird year, and then he just gets back to the consistent, durable guy that he's been in San Francisco. Like, he's been out there, so durability hasn't been the issue, but just getting kind of pushed around is something, quite frankly, I didn't anticipate, especially with how we saw him in training camp in the preseason and the nasty he seemed to bring to the room. That was surprising. And yes, as you mentioned, Connor McGovern is a free agent, so what are you going to do there? The Jets have flirted with options. Ryan Jensen, they flirted with in free agency. Corey Linsley before in free agency. So I think center is going to be a big point of emphasis this offseason for the Jets. We'll see whether that's a draft or a free agency thing. They don't have the normal amount of money that they would. But I do believe that this offensive line can be comparable enough to get them through this run. Again, true health in the offseason and adding new pieces to the puzzle is going to help more than anything. But this offensive line can be good enough. They haven't been good enough, but they have the ability to be good enough to get the job done both in the run game and pass game. It just won't be as dominant as they were hoping it would be before the year.
One thing I've always had a problem with the Jets this year has been the assistant coaches. A lot of the time, Jeff Ulbrich, I liked him at the beginning of the season, but he kind of fallen off, I think, when it comes to adjustments. And then Mike LaFleur, the same kind of thing. I think they're too stubborn in their systems. Do you feel the same way with either side of the ball?
Jeff Ulbrich got a lot of shit, to be blunt, at the beginning of the year for the defensive line rotation. That was the thing that pissed people off because Quinnen Williams was getting anywhere in between like 58 and 63% of the snaps. Wow. And again, with a player that a lot of people perceive to be the best player on the team. This is before he's blown up, and again, he's a Pro Bowler. I imagine he's going to be an All-Pro too. This is before all this blow up that happened over the last batch of weeks. It's early in the season. He showed pops, but you would think that, man, if he's showing pops with 58% of the snaps, if you give him 75, like, oh shit, move out. Well, what is he? What is the ceiling going to possibly be? But the defensive line, or excuse me, the defensive coordinator, in this case Jeff Ulbrich, said, "Nah, we got a system, baby. This is how it works." And he got a lot of flack from fans, the media, and everything. And then all of a sudden, something clicked. They did increase Quinnen's percentage a little bit, so they did acquiesce to some of that public pressure.
Oh, I like that
but
word.
Overall,
acquiesce.
They did just. Yes, there you go. Fancy words.
Oh, I love it, man. I love it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I try to dig into the vernacular if I can.
I like that one too.
Using that associate's degree and bachelor's degree. There you go, Mom. I told you I'd use all that college money you guys spent. There you go. God bless. So, at the end of the day, I will disagree on the Jeff Ulbrich stuff. I think while, again, there was a lot of flack early on, they stuck to their guns and it's worked out great.
Yes.
The Jets have been a great pressure team, a great sack team. Quinnen Williams has 12 sacks in the year. That's the 6th highest total in single season history of the New York Jets. And he has a chance. And really, if he didn't miss the game and then the other like 3/4 portion of the Buffalo game, he'd probably be at 15 sacks right now, which, by the way, his 12 right now is the highest number among interior defensive linemen in the league. So he's balling out. He's the Aaron Donald of interior defensive linemen this year. So that's great. But I think I cannot push back at all on the Mike LaFleur stuff. He just gets too cute. All his 3rd and 4th and short packages suck. He just gets too far in his bag. He does crazy crap. He outthinks himself. And I don't know if it's the LaFleur name and he's trying to play to it. I don't know if he wants to be like the hero and like, wow, what a great call. Like, that's the reason the Jets won. I have no idea. I'm not in Mike LaFleur's head, but he's just done a lot of crazy crap this year. Like when it's a simple, hey, just QB sneak it, you got it. They do a halfback sweep for a 5-yard loss. There's another one this year. I think it was the Bengals game. It was a 4th and 5 play and they did a deep, out, like almost like a deep fade route to Elijah Moore in triple coverage. You're like, man, Elijah Moore's like 5'10". What are we doing here? Yeah. So they've just done a lot of weird stuff, especially in the red zone. A lot of that has been bad because Mike LaFleur has leaned on the pass more so than the run, and that's hurt them in a lot of situations. Because when you pass the ball, 3 things can happen, and 2 of them are bad. So I think really that they needed to, kind of get less out of the bag, more committed to the running game. And right, his adaptations have been very poor. And again, whether you want to give them the excuse or not, they've had 4 different quarterbacks this year get snaps, and God bless, we've continued that run for the New York Jets every gosh darn year for the last 4 or 5 years, getting at least 3 quarterbacks in every season. I appreciate the holiday spirit. Sharing that's very nice, sharing the rock from the quarterback perspective, but you'd like that to be contained a little more. So both to kind of long way roundabout answer the question. I think both guys are safe. Not that there was any question they were going to get fired, but I think both guys are safe. And Mike LaFleur has at least another full year to me before even that's a thought.
There's only one LaFleur that's a hero, and that's Peter.
Oh my God.
That's right. Yeah, Average Joe's. Globo Gym, baby.
No, I love that movie, by the way.